keep it going for Laura, everyone.
Hi, everybody. So I was actually driving over here from Collegeville, and I wasn't planning to come, and then I said, all right, I'm going to go. So that was my first risk tonight. Second risk is they had extra spaces, so I signed up. So here I am, your last speaker for the night. I come from a long line of risk takers, 200 years of Presbyterian missionaries. My great-grandmother met my great-grandfather on a boat to China, and she was a doctor, one of the first doctors at the turn of the century. So that kind of set the stage in my ancestry. 50 years in China, and my grandmother and my grandfather lived 20 years in the Philippines, where my grandfather is buried, and hopefully one day I'll get to go and visit. And my mother, on her junior year abroad, met my grandparents and married my father over in the Philippines. So it's in my blood. And I'm going to start with, I'm 4 decades old, okay? I won't tell you how far into my 4th decade. But in my 20s, I went to Russia. And I spent 5 years there. Now, the first time I was there was in 88 as a student, 89 as a student, and 90, when the tanks were going from Moscow to the Baltics, I was getting ready to get on a plane, a Pan Am flight, if you can remember back then, and my mother was able to take me all the way up to the gate back then. We can't do that anymore. So we hugged each other, and I felt like saying, look, it's your fault, damn it. You're the one that took all your risks in your life, so, give me a break. I'm going to Russia. And so in the 90s, now, if you want to know any of these stories, you're going to have to come to my old Russian New Year party in January and drink shots of vodka with me, because that's about the only time I want to share these stories. But when I got to Russia in 90, you're young. Obviously, Nicholas said that's true. It's so true. In your 20s, you don't even think about your life. And I got on a plane. I was a nanny for an American journalist, and his wife, his wife. And she had to go back to the States. So I had a couple of months to do nothing in Moscow, and I thought, what can I do? Well, my friend Jill had an exchange student who she studied with at Pomona, who lived in Uzbekistan. So they wrote a letter from their communist university for me as an invitation to come to Uzbekistan. I thought, cool, I'm going to go to Uzbekistan. And got on a plane with a one-way ticket, did not know Kadir, really, didn't know his friends Max, and I can't remember the other guy's name. And I got off the plane in Tashkent, and I swear to God, for 2 weeks, I was off the radar screen, or maybe I wasn't, I have no idea. But I really thought I was off the radar screen, and ended up in Bukhara and Samarkand, where I actually did have a visa. And then in the middle of the night in Bukhara, we were at this restaurant, and we said, let's go to Khiva. Now, Khiva was a closed town at the time. I'm like, okay, it takes 5 hours through the night in the desert, and you end up in this amazing little town in the desert in Uzbekistan with 3 Uzbeks and some taxi driver. And it was amazing. And it's a story that I'll always remember, but I'll probably never do it again. And as I said, there are many stories like that. If you can imagine Moscow, who here has been to Moscow? Okay. All right, I've been there in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. And I can tell you, one of the biggest risks I ever had in my life was getting on an elevator in any building in Moscow, because there are these little wooden elevators, and they have little holes at the top, and the floor, when you step into the elevator, the floor drops 5 inches. So I always had these visions of, okay, if the floor is really gonna fall, there are these little holes, I can stick my fingers through the holes, and I can just hang there and not die. So that was my 20s. In my 30s, I moved to California. Didn't know what to do. I mean, what do you do after you sell booze to the mafia in Moscow, You teach inner city kids in East Oakland. That's what you do. So that's what I did. And That is another story that maybe I'll write one day. Spitballs in the Inner City is what I'll call it. But then I had a bicycle accident about 5 years ago. And I decided it was time to turn all of those risk-taking activities inside. And if you want to know one of the scariest things that you can do, is to go somewhere by yourself with 50 other people and not talk for 9 days. Because all you have is what's inside here to keep you company. And sometimes that is very scary. But it was an experience that really culminated after years of trying to find out what to do, how to be, where to go, why I'm here. And that, to me, is the path that I continue to take today. The risks that I want to try to continue to take are right in here. And how can I identify with who's out there? And how can we find that communal vulnerability that keeps us together? Thanks.
Laura, everybody.